I'm going to share a nice survey done by ProductTank and led by Anthony. So here is the part of the survey done by them. And they interviewed about 200 product people in New Zealand in 2024. And they asked about their prior role before they jump into the product roles. And we can see from the figures that 26% of the product people, they used to work as a business analyst before they jump into the product role. So that's why we have the event today. As business analysts in the product role and the product world, they are kind of overlapping, but yet they are also unique. So we'll try to have this event and have our 4 amazing panelists to help us uncover the world. So without further ado, may I ask our panelists to do some self-intros? Can we start from Anthony again?
I've already introduced myself. I'll just mention briefly on the survey. So this is part of the work that we do at Product Aotearoa to understand the market across New Zealand. We just presented this at the conference around about a week ago. So you're very interesting. 27% came from BA. Those other numbers, the 653, they're the other roles. So predominantly in New Zealand, most of product people came, nearly 50% came from those 2 primary roles.
So, good evening, everyone. I'm Ha. I currently working as the business analyst in the UCG. The UCG is the partner of Chorus. So our company have the system to manage the technician to install the network, the Wi-Fi. If you want to install the internet, so maybe you know a UCG. So we have the system to manage the technician both out and in web. And before that, I have the product. I work as the product owner, so I manage on the whole process from the start when we have the waste from the marketing team and research the market market needs, and then we launch the product and monitor the product, any production issue after that. So that's me.
Thank you, Ha. Tēnā koutou, everyone. My name is Maddy. Not surprising. I work at Visa. I'm an engineering team lead, previously a business analyst specialist, whatever that means. Equates to, I guess, BA lead in the industry. Been at Visa for 7 years. Lots of different stuff that I've been involved in, which you may or may not find out depending on the questions or what questions you ask us. Yeah, nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Maddy. Hi, I'm Zach. I'm a digital products lead at Auckland Transport. A couple of the products that I manage, I look after the 80 mobile public transport app. So if you want to talk to me about your ghost bus experience, feel free. I also look after Fair Share, which is our employer hob subsidy. So if you want your employer to subsidise your public transport, you can also come talk to me if you want to incentivise them to that. Fun fact, Auckland Transport employees don't get discounted public transport, if you ever wondered. So we use the system just like you do. At AT, so I've obviously got a product background, but at AT we've got a great team of BAs which we work with across some of our different products and projects. And as a theme will come out tonight, I think BAs do some different things depending on the types of things that they do. And so I've worked with them across a range of different project configurations.
Thank you. Thank you for the amazing and interesting intros from the panelists. So now let's dive into the panel talk tonight. So the first question is a very interesting yet controversial topics on linking that some people argue that as a product role, you should at least have a fundamental level of business analyst experience. Would you agree? Why or why not? Can we please start from Jack?
Thanks, that'd be cool. Look, I think that's an interesting question. I think the short answer is yes. A lot of what product people do is business analyst work. when you're trying to think about the requirements of the product you're developing or trying to elicit that stuff, I think that's core to the role. Now, what we mean by that is, I think, look, it doesn't mean you have to have BA in your title necessarily, but I think it does mean that you need to have some of the ways of thinking and have practiced some of that in the types of areas or the work that you do.
Maddy, would you like to
did have
comment?
something to say. Yeah, I do agree with that statement, but I would tweak it a bit to be like, I think it's very core for product people to have business analysis experience rather than business analyst. Like, as Zach said, you don't need a title to define your next steps. The way I see it is, if you're in a product role, there needs to be a core set of business analysis that you've kind of have of that experience. That being said, it doesn't mean that you're the business analyst. The business analyst, if in that organization, has a very important role to play, as so does the product. So I think whatever flavor your organization has, you know, there's I think some sort of respect that you can come to from each other, that you both have like shared skill sets, and you know, depending on how you work, they complement each other. Yeah.
Thank you, Maddy.
I totally with both of you, and I totally agree with the opinion as well. Because in my opinion, I think actually not only the BA but also the developer, the QC in the team, we need to have some fundamental knowledge from the BA skill, because as the member of the development team, we need to have the first thing, we need to understand the requirement correctly, properly. Otherwise, whatever we do, we waste, right? And another thing is we need to have analytic skill to do our job, regardless of it is the coding or the testing or whatever. So yes, my answer is yes.
I've most recently was Chief Product Officer at an organization called Solar Zero, and I actually built teams which had BAs and product people, and my expectation was that those roles would cover and complement each other. And so we had the role of the BA was to go deep on something, and the role of the product person was to keep their focus on the strategy. But even in my own role as Chief Product Officer, sometimes I had to dive in and do deep level analysis myself because all of my BAs were busy. And the key thing we found to kind of keep everybody happy was to make sure that just the BAs and the product people spent some time sort of establishing roles and responsibilities so that they didn't feel like they were stepping on each other's toes, they were complementing each other's work.
Thank you. Well, that surprised me because I heard that the product people and business analysts are always fighting in the real world. Yeah, but the answer they
Can't we just get along?
Yeah, they give are quite peaceful. Yeah, I will expect that they will fight each other. That's nice. Yeah. So next question will be that, can you please share an example or your own experience that you have collaborated with a BA or with the product people? And can you please also share that whether it's do you think it's a challenging experience or it's a positive experience?
I have to say it was positive because there were people in my team who were collaborating with each other. So of course, no, to be honest, there was some times when we did have some conflict in the team. So the BA feeling like the product person was stepping on their toes, and the product person feeling like the BA was like, you know, diving into areas where they could dive into. And it was all about communication. It was just about people getting together and going, this is what we're trying to get done as a team. We only have a limited number of humans in the team. Let's just get stuff done, and people not being too precious about the role titles. It's the outcomes that matter. And my expectation of the BA and the product person would be the most tightest collaboration within that team. And so they should always know, you know, who's overloaded, who's not overloaded. Do I have capacity to dive into this? Do I not? The flip side of that is my expectation also was that the product person did need to spend the time looking out into the future and not getting too caught up in the detail. And the role of the BA was to work on the detail work. So if I caught one of my product people, myself included, diving too much into the detail, it'd be like, okay, hang on, we need to just rebalance that.
Can I have a follow-up question for Anthony?
Uh-oh.
So as a product people, yeah, just a very peaceful one, because they were peaceful. Yeah. So as a product people, can you please share that? How do you define a great BA, or which qualities do you think a BA equipped that you would like to work with?
somebody that has my back, basically. Somebody who I can really work with, who's almost has that product mindset, but is happy to just dive deep and dive deeper and then dive deeper and then dive a bit deeper on something until they've satisfied their own curiosity. The number one quality for me of a good BA and a good product person is curiosity. And so I'm looking for, the BAs that I work best with are the ones who are just like super curious about the world. I have this amazing BA, I was just chatting to her just earlier actually, and she was just amazing at just going across the organization and just finding stuff out and finding what might or might not be relevant to the product iteration that we were working on. And her core skills was building those relationships because she was just curious about the world. She just wanted to know everything. And so that was the thing that made her really valuable to the organization.
Yeah, thank you. That's really valuable. So the BA should at least have strong communication skills and also be curiosity about everything in the organization. Yeah. How can you please share your experience?
So I would like to share about the good point of when we work with the BA and the BO. So as per the BA, normally we work detail the requirement with the developer and the QC, so they can provide some the point of view from the system, rather than when we work with the BO, normally they will provide the point of view from the customer, and they can give us the understanding about the market trend, something like that. So I think this is the good point when we work with the BA and the product owner, because this is the nature of the different tasks.
So what kind of quality do you think the product owner should have from the BA perspective?
Yeah, so I think to be a great product owner, they need to have the domain knowledge, because they need to think about all the necessary features that the product should have. And the second thing is they need to have understand about the market, because they need to analyze on the availability product that we have in the market for now, what's in the trend of the market, and then we can analyze with the enterprise to provide the market and launch it in the provide the product in the market. And the last thing, I think they need to understand the BO needs to have the customer centric. They need to focus on the benefit that we bring to the customer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Han. That's very great to have that we can look at a product person from a BA role. Yeah. Maddy, would you like to share?
Which question am I answering?
So just share your experience, collaborate with the product people in your past, and whether it's a challenging or a positive experience.
Cool. Thank you, Hayley. I would say, there's the normal teething issues that BA and product roles have. They're known, this is why we're all here, right? The most challenging I find, or I had found in a kind of collaborative space, was defining and aligning on what the business value was. And I know that seems really, really it should be the cool thing, right? But it's something that, as I see as a BA, you're not necessarily there to, yes, sometimes you do get asked your opinion, but you're there to present information so the best decision can be made. And sometimes, in my experience, no offense to product people, but that does come with we need to drive an agenda, which is totally fair, right? The business has to make money, but what is that value? And is it just for user testing? Is that the most valuable thing? So I think that negotiation piece between product and BA, and making sure that I think the technical is translated right, and I'm speaking from software delivery experience, that everyone understands the situation so that the best decision can be made, whether it's, specifically for your stack around, targeting, tech debt, or, investing in automation, or actually this is going to save the business so much value because we can put this button here and it eliminates this whole process, right? So understanding and aligning on the value is really core for BA and product to have. And I find that that's sometimes the most challenging because everyone has got, I guess, an agenda on what that should be, which is very natural, right, in the roles that we are expected to perform in.
Yeah, thank you, Maddy. So as a business analyst, what do you think the most important qualities that a business analyst should have?
Yeah. So I did make a list here. I don't know, like I feel like they're very transferable skills, but I think like especially when I'm interviewing BAs, what I look for is, are they a problem solver? Are they listening? Are they articulate? So easily understood, you know, landing the point. They're able to make the complex simple. That's a really hard thing to do. If you nail it, you're well ahead of most people, and you're not ego driven. That can be said for product as well, right? Like you're there to solve a problem. You're not there to push your own agenda. And you know, it's a teamwork at the end of the day, right? You're all there for the same reason. You know, your business gotta make the dough, you know, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Maddy. So I think what Maddy said is that a business analyst should be good at communicating and should have the kind of skill to make the complex things easy and make yourself understood and understand others as well. Yeah, thank you. Jack, would you like to?
Yeah, cool. We'll go back a couple of steps. I think, you know, we talked about conflict and why there's conflict. And I guess that one of the elephants in the room, I think, around BAs and product is, you know, there's a lot of overlap in the skills and capability between what they can do. And I think a lot of that conflict sometimes comes from when people feel that the product manager or the BA is doing what they're meant to be doing, you know, and that's where it can start. And, you know, I think part of that is I think a lot of organizations are not clear on what they expect from not only BAs and product people, but, you know, that's before you start adding all the other roles, you know, project manager, test analyst, data analyst, solution architect, which I think, you know, it'd be like I see everyone laughing on the panel. It can be a familiar experience that you've got all these people and you don't really know what they do, you know. And so in preparing for tonight's workshop, I interviewed 4 different business analysts in good product manager fashion to do a bit of discovery on what their experiences were. And I think the one experience that stuck out was, I think there was a business analyst who was kind of hired into like a smaller organization. And basically she said she was this product manager for starting up a new product. She did product discovery, market research, and brought a pilot to market with the title of business analyst. So I think it's, you know, the takeaway there is, you know, whether that's at an organizational level, if you're in leadership, or even just at a team level, really think about, you know, what is it that you're trying to do? What makes sense for your project? And I think what are the strengths and weaknesses of the teams that you're on and of the different people? You know, one example is that at Auckland Transport, we're looking at improving the hot refund process. So, you know, if you've ever had a missing tag or something like that, so you might write into us, and then 6 weeks later, we've done a 10-minute investigation for your $1.50 that you were owed. So we're looking to speed up and automate this process. And so on that team, we've both got a product manager and a business analyst. And I think what we know in that team is that that product manager is a very strong visionary and really great at understanding the customer problem, but her technical skills and understanding is something that she wants to develop. And so what the business analysts in that team can do is bring their level of technical expertise and their knowledge to help flesh out requirements, to test for technical feasibility, to think about edge cases and some of the other problems. So I think, you know, one of the ways to have really good experiences is making sure you're clear about what those expectations are. And I think sometimes that's something that's going to be discovered over time. So you're not going to get that right the first time when you come into a team and you work with them. I think the other contrast I draw is on some of the projects we have at Auckland Transport, we don't have business analysts. So you're working with us. And I think what I see on those projects are often we're clarifying scope and requirements late, or we're missing things, or there are lots of edge cases that we haven't thought about. So, you know, those are some of the areas where I think business analysts can really help to make sure that we're not, you know, us product people aren't thinking about the happy path, great customer experience, but making sure we're thinking about everything that we're putting together.
Thank you, Jack. I think Jack raised a very important point that the BA in A company will be totally different from the role in B company. So when you're applying for a role as a BA, be careful about the job description. Yeah, so next we'll jump to the career path. So as a BA, I wonder that have you considered transitioning into a product role? And what factors would you consider before you make such a switch or make such a decision that you want to move to a product role? Yeah, can we start from Maddy?
Okay. Yeah, I did start out when I started out in my software career, I did join as a business analyst. It was cool. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll go into product. Maybe I'll, I don't know, do something else. Maybe I'll be a developer. I don't know. I did consider it. And then I was like, no, not me. But I did really strongly consider early on about product. And for me, I was just too passionate about software. And I felt there was just so much more that I could kind of influence in that space than in product. And this is no offense to anyone, it's totally preference, but I felt limited if I went down the product route. And so now I'm really enjoying being an engineering team lead. I've been just under 2 years in the role. And yeah, I'm using my BA skills and my knowledge of product and technical teams and things like that to live my best life.
Thank you, Matt. How about you, huh?
Yes, for me, actually, I didn't want to be the product owner before, but somehow I just applied for the job and I need to do the product owner jobs, and I found it's quite very challenging but interesting. Why? Because when you do as the product owner, you need to have a different view. For example, you cannot just focus on the requirement and the detail, but you need to care about other scope of other things of the product, like the timeline when you deliver, because it needs to go along with the strategy of the organization. This is the first thing. Another thing is we need to work with the different stakeholder in the company. For example, in my previous company, this is the Shopee, this is the e-commerce platform like the Temu, and it's have some many countries. And then when we have and the company have many campaigns, and then we need to adapt with the campaign of the company. So we need to define the scope so that the development team can deliver the product on time. And then we need to work with the marketing, the service team, many different stakeholders that we never work as the BA. So this is quite challenging for me. And but I still quite think it's very nice task. Because why? Because we can expand the scope of the work. We have the more authority to manage the product. We understand clearly about the product. We understand and we can monitor the post production, how many users use the product, and we can follow which stage the user of in the process of the product, something like that. So I think it's quite very fun, but very difficult.
Yeah. Thank you, Ha. So another question is for the product people, Anthony and Jake. So what motivates you to pursue their current role, and what advice would you give if someone wants to transition from a BA to a product role?
So I came into product through a sort of a slightly different route to BA. I was an engineer for a long time, software engineer, and then moved into what I thought was a project called a project manager role, but in actual fact, it probably had a BA aspect to it, and then moved into product from there. I guess the first thing I want to say is just to echo what Maddy said, is that product is not the inevitable career path for a BA. I hear a lot of people just going, oh, it's just inevitable. You know, do the things that make you passionate. Like if your passion is actually for building software, then, you know, potentially being an engineering lead is the thing to do. Don't view it as just a singular path. There are multiple different paths. Having said that, BAs make excellent product people because you're thinking about the need, the want, the customer. What do they actually want? What are you trying to do? You're in touch with different areas of the business. Product role is very broad, as Har was saying. Like you do have that very broad focus in any organization. So you get to see a lot, and that's why I enjoy doing product, because it spans the whole business. But it's ultimately about getting something done for a customer, and that's what gets me out of bed, is actually getting stuff done for the end customer, and in a way that makes money for my business as well. And so for me, that was why I wanted to make the jump from those sort of through, particularly from sort of engineer into that BA role and then into product, was that as an engineer I could only have so much impact on the world. I wanted to have a bigger impact, and so for me that was the catalyst for the transitions.
Yeah. What's your journey, Jack?
I think that thing Anthony said at the end about impact, I think really resonated with me, that you've got an ability to have a really big impact through that you can do. But also as a software engineer on these other roles, look, you can have a big impact as well. I think, like many people, most people probably in New Zealand anyway, I fell into product management. It's not like you wake up as an 18-year-old and if you ask any 18-year-old, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, I want to be a product manager when I grow up. And maybe in the US, I think maybe that's more of if you live in Silicon Valley, you probably know what that is. But I find, 4 out of 5 times I've got to explain what my job is to people when I meet them on the street. Look, I made the transition from an operational role. So I work for a company called Crimson Education, and I moved internally because I was really interested in how we could use technology to improve our operational outcomes. And so it kind of just happened naturally. And it is a little bit more of a challenging market now, I think, for anyone trying to make the transition to product. So I would suggest that looking for those opportunities internally, whether that is because there are product roles going and you can translate your skill from a BA to a product. If those kind of roles, aren't there for you internally, look at how you can challenge yourself to take on some more of those product responsibilities, or, be really clear in your teams, holding to vision, product roadmap, be really engaged in the kind of conversations, the discussions that are happening, and seek out those opportunities. Sometimes those opportunities aren't going to come to you unless you go out and find and create those opportunities yourself to take on something new or put your hand up to do something different, to show that you're ready or more capable of some of those things. And sit tight, because I think the market will be getting better next year.
Thank you, Jack. I think that everyone's journey is quite unique, but what they are saying something quite similar is that always open to opportunity and open to more challenges. And also ask yourself what motivates you, what makes you happy when you are working. Yeah, that's really important. Thank you for the sharing. This is all the questions from me. And now we're open to questions from audience. And we're also open question to the online attendees. If you have any questions, please post your question on our YouTube channel. Any questions from our audience? Yeah. Yeah, please. Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering if there's been situations where BAs have spent too much time doing analysis, maybe not understood what the return on investment is for their time. Is there a way to manage that?
So the question is,
sorry,
yes.
Before that, I might need to repeat the question so that the online audience they can hear. So here is a question for business analysts. Yeah, the audience is curious about it. How much time was the business analyst spend on analysts, and whether they are valuable enough, and how to deal with some invaluable analysis that they need to do at work? Thank you, Jack.
I think that's a really interesting question, but I don't think that's just business analysts, right? Product people can get caught up in their solution or their idea or their grand plans for the future too. I think one of the BAs I was speaking to used the word challenge, and not in a kind of a mean way, but part of the responsibility of those two roles is to hold each other accountable, both each other to the business value that they're delivering or what it is that they're trying to seek. So I don't think that's a problem just limited to BAs or product people. I think anyone can fall into the trap of spending too much time on something.
Can we have some comment from BA, Maddy or Har?
I agree. In your specific example or situation, I would say probably talk to their line manager. No, that's a joke. No, like like I think as BAs, like if we're really practicing the craft that we say we should be practicing, right, and we look at Babok and all that, we're supposed to be like minimizing the work not done and making sure that the value that is being articulated is really, really what we're supposed to be doing. And it's a hard one because you kind of, you know, it's the same as like, I'm going back to software again. You guys are going to love me. So, you know, like you say, oh, no, it's 90% done. It's only got 10% left. And that takes like 100% more time, right? It's the same thing. And it's knowing when it's enough and maybe the communication, like if it's got to that point, then maybe the product or whatever kind of situation there is that you can maybe be a bit more open and be like, is this really valuable? Well, yeah. Come chat to me after. We can chat more. Yeah.
I think Paul already answered your question. I just want to add a note that before you analyze something, please ensure that we understand correctly the requirement, the real requirement before we go to the next step. Otherwise, all of the work we do will become nothing. Yeah. And I can share another experience. It's a really painful to understand the requirement properly. We need to determine the proper stakeholders, because you know that in my experience, I do everything, just gather requirement, raw workflow, communication back and forth with the stakeholder, transfer, write the document, user story, everything, mock-up, and then transfer to the team. The development team is ready to do, and then we figure out, no, we missed the important stakeholder, and then when he jump out on everything we do, will be updated from the beginning. So it's really painful. Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with what Maddy said. Don't talk to the line manager because in my case it was me. and if I have a BA and a product person come to me and I'm like, let's just sort it out between yourselves, please. No, I mean, in all seriousness, in that situation, I would probably put that one on the product manager to say, look, you haven't articulated the value of the thing well enough. Like if the BA is spending weeks and weeks and weeks on this, but the overall value to the organization is that it's actually just a small thing, I would put that on the product manager for not having really shared that value very well. But also equally, I mean, I've literally been in that situation where, small organization, I had to jump into actually being hands-on product manager and had a BA working with me, and she was pushing me because she's like, no, Anthony, you don't, because I'm like, okay, are we done yet? And like, hey, there's bits of the organization that we haven't talked to. Look, I've identified these other places and we haven't got there. And so she was sort of keeping me honest as well. So it comes back to what I was saying earlier, communication. It's that communication between those two roles, depending on how the organization's set up, that should be the closest relationship in the team. So if they're not on the same page, again, me being line manager for them, I'm going to find ways to get them on the same page. So.
Thank you. There is an online question popping up. For someone transitioning from a testing background with Scrum certifications, what strategy would you recommend to break into the product team?
So I think firstly I'd echo what Zach said earlier on. It's tough out there right now. I've been around this industry a very long time. It is the hardest I've seen it in probably 20 years. We're fortunate in New Zealand that when we had the 2008 crash, tech didn't really get affected. When COVID happened, tech powered up, powered through those sections. So the major sort of world events have not really impacted tech until now. And so firstly, it's really hard. And so firstly, to echo what Zach said, is look for internal sideways opportunities first, because it's unlikely, in fact, I'd say extremely unlikely to move from being not a BA role or not a product role into one of those roles as a new job into a new organization. Right now, it was always difficult, but right now it's exceedingly unlikely. So look for those sideways shifting opportunities. And then, I mean, again, just to, I guess, I'm totally like stealing what Zach was saying earlier on, was that, find those find those opportunities to show that you're thinking like a BA or a product role. I mean, at the end of the day, these are just job titles. Somebody might be called a product manager, but that doesn't mean that other people can't do aspects of product management. That notion of ownership, just own something, own a customer problem, get that customer problem solved, be curious about something. Ownership and curiosity, if you display those two key traits and demonstrate that in your organization, you're already well on your way to when an opportunity opens up, to jump onto that opportunity.
I agree. We very rarely disagree. At Visa, we have this kind of leadership principles, and basically the premise we have is that no matter at what job level you're at, you're a leader. And that sounds really like, oh, what does that mean? Well, it's like if you see a problem and no one's doing anything to fix the problem and you want to go do it, you're absolutely encouraged, as long as it's not like building a whole new tech stack and website, obviously like there's a difference there. But that can go for any role, right? Like if you're there fixing a problem, that's you can lead from any type of space you're in, and it's just making sure that, again, you're solving the right problem. That may get you noticed. Sometimes you do solve a problem that's not even like people are like, oh, great, that's not going to help me. But it's definitely something where I forgot what I was about to say. That's my ADHD. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
The path from testing into product is actually a fairly common one. There, apart from that BA role and BA in technology, we actually, in our survey, we're not 100% sure because we didn't really qualify what we meant by a technical role. So we actually believe that some of those technical roles were testing/QA type roles. I have worked with a lot of good product managers who have come from a testing background, and the reason is that they are those testers who ask the hard questions, like, what is this really doing for a customer? Like, what do I need to test? Like, what am I really actually trying to make sure is correct? And they really spend that time getting into the head of their customer. So the best testers I've ever worked with are the ones who think like a customer, can break something like a customer can, and that then develops that product kind of mindset of that sort of customer-centric kind of thinking.
Thank you. Any other question from the people in the room? Yeah, please.
Hi, everyone. I want to know, we are talking about a BA and a product, and we are putting up them as a two different domains, which I understand. But a lot of companies these days are putting up at the same position, like even just touch base on it. Like if I take my example, I used to work for New Zealand, and I recently got restructured as a part of Hammond in the restructuring. And for the outside world, I'm a business analyst. But for New Zealand, along with the product managers, we used to call it as product management specialist. So another question is, who am I? Am I a something product manager? I'm a business analyst. And even like if you see Seek or any of the job portals, you will see a role as product analyst. And if you compare with the BA, everything is same.
Yeah. So the question, just for the people online, just so we need to make sure that they can hear, is often companies call these roles different things. The person asking the question was talking about product management analyst. We've seen product analyst. We've seen product specialist. I've seen various combinations of these things. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier on, is that every company does this differently. That's okay. It's what serves the needs of that particular organization. Sometimes titles are there because of history of the company. We can't continue we've had a restructure, so we can't continue to call it that role, and crazy stuff like that. So it's not the titles that matter, it's everybody understanding what parts of the job that they're doing that matters. As long as everybody gets along with everybody else and doesn't feel like they're always stepping on each other's toes, it doesn't matter as long as you're getting stuff done for a customer and for the business. When it does matter is when you're then applying for a role and you go in there and go, right, this organization's advertising a product owner role. What does that really mean? Are they a product manager? Are they a business analyst? Are they a project manager? Are they all three? Because they sometimes are. So again, I think we mentioned it earlier on, is to just really read the job description, and then when the interview, put that question on the interviewer. If you don't feel like you understand the scope of the role and how it's implemented in that business, just ask. They will happily share it, and will probably get you brownie points, because business analysts have to be curious, or product people have to be curious as well. So it's a good way to show empathy in the interview.
Probably they'll say you have to act both.
Yeah. I mean, and I'd even lead with that in an interview. Make sure that before you're answering any questions, that you actually really understand what they're hiring for. Because I've got an interview thinking a role was not an individual contributor role when it was a leadership role and stuff like that, because companies don't make it clear. I think the other thing you could do is, when you think through your experience or how you're positioning your experience, I think it's not only the title, but it's how you write up your experience and how you characterize the things that you were doing. So, if you were talking to, I don't know, if you were talking to customers, or you were working on the business, the vision, and supporting that, make that clear in the way in your CV and what you're writing up when you're comparing that to the different types of roles that you might be applying for. Because I guess in your case, you might be looking at both product and BA type roles across the full spectrum. So just think about how you're tailoring your different CVs to those different setups.
Yeah, thank you. How would you like to comment?
No, that's enough.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
I'm curious, when does solution come into the process? Obviously, with a big organisation, you've probably got architects involved and stuff with the product manager. With a smaller organisation, would the solution fall with the product owner or BA? Both, or engineering?
So that is a question about the solution process in different organizations.
If you're at the product conference, there was a lot of chat about the problem and solution space. And I think there was a really big focus, I think, coming through at the product conference, that one of the focuses of product managers really needs to be on really clearly setting up the problem and what that is. I think who's doing the solution really depends on what the solution is and where that falls in and what everyone's expertise is. But it might be natural that that's a trio of product design and product design. Sorry, I'm missing someone. Developers, BA. So I think it's different, but maybe someone's got some more practical advice on that.
Well, funny you should ask. We've just started to look at our problem discovery, solution discovery with trios, and it's worked really well for us. And the question I actually asked the trio, because I wanted to stay hands-off and let the actual engineers handle the engineering side. And yeah, it was... Yeah. I don't know what's with my brain. So with that, it was, when does solution start, right? And it's a bit of a hard one because, if you think of software, right? Like at the end of the day, what are you wanting to deliver as a product in production for your customer to use, right? You want to sell it, you want to scale it, you maybe want to tweak some features, you want to add to it. And as Zach said, around the problem space, that really needs to be defined. And sometimes you find that whether that problem space isn't defined, or like even the high level, like today I was questioning like basic, I shouldn't have been, I was wearing my BA hat, and I was questioning like, okay, so if we're loading this panel and it's supposed to appear on a list and it's in a list item, right? And you're editing a form, when you close it or submit it, what is the user expecting to see? And it was around like synchronization, asynchronous, and how we run those operations around, I guess maybe I'm getting a bit too technical, but you're creating and reading in the database, is that the same action? Like what type of non-functional behavior do we want? And if we're not answering that up front and defining what that looks like for the end user, if we come back and deliver the product into production and the I don't know, senior product director goes, oh, but why can't we see it straight away? And then they're like, oh, you want us to build it that way? We'll have to redo the architecture, right? So these are really basic things that I find that involving core people in the problem discovery really helps with delivering the solution. It doesn't necessarily answer your when, but I think it should be all up front, right? We all know that if we don't address non-functionals up front, the cost to whatever business, whether it's process or product, is super expensive when it gets to the customer's hands. So that's my answer when I finally collected my thoughts.
Thank you. There is an online question. What merits or characteristics would there be for people in product role consider moving into business analyst role? How would you like to start? As this is exactly what your journey looks like.
Sorry, can you say the question again, please?
Yeah, what characteristic would there be for the people who consider to moving from a product role into a business analyst role?
Yes, this is my case. But I think if you move from the product owner to be the business analyst, it's quite give you many point of view, because when you do the BA, you need to understand the requirement, right? And you need to do the detailed requirement, and you need to work with the developer, the QC team, and to ensure that all the feature we deliver will be usable exactly as our original expectation. But if you used to be the product owner before, they need to understand what's the benefit that the feature or the system will bring to the end user. So it's really useful for the business analyst to understand the benefits from the product or the feature after we deliver it. So I think, and then as the product owner, we can understand the whole process when we have the requirement to have the new products, and then we how we deliver it, how we launch it in the market, and then how to monitor after we launch the product, and then we can get the feedback from the user, and then enhance the product later on. So the view of the product owner will, I think, it's a long term the product vision, and then it's really useful for you if you back to the BA.
Thank you. That's a really good answer. I think Anthony, you want to?
I think to add to that, it sounds like there's probably a bit of context behind that question, which would be fascinating to know. But it's not uncommon for the product owner role in particular to be synonymous with a BA, for the product owner role just to be a label that's put on what's actually a BA role. And so if you transition from a PO role to a BA role, if it's BA was what you're doing before, it's just, it's the same. It's the same. You'll probably find it's the same job. So again, it comes down to understanding what the scope of the role is. I think also we talked about this a little bit earlier, was just understand what gets you out of bed. And if perhaps you want to move into maybe a more interesting domain, if you're maybe like a product person in one organization, but there's a BA opportunity in a more interesting domain, and you can get in there as a BA, great, do that. Do follow the career path and the things that actually make you interested. I mean, I've had times, even as like CPO, sitting there going, oh, I just yearn for the days where I could just like be an individual contributor BA, just getting stuff done. If that's what makes you, if that's what gets you out of bed, then do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Actually, it's interesting. I can think of a role at AT where increasingly the demands, so the role's titled a business analyst, but increasingly demands being placed on that role, a much more product owner or product manager, where we were trying to uplift the thing that was being delivered. And so, and that person actually decided, look, that's not what they were looking for. And I think that's okay too. You don't have to, as Anthony said, it's not inevitable that everything's going to become a product manager. If you desire to be in the technical detail, not having to necessarily think all the time. Now, not saying you never think about the bigger picture, right? But that you have the ownership and that really high level of accountability to that, then it's totally fine as well to be looking for roles that meet your expectation. Because I think the reality is there are a lot of BA roles out there asking a lot of, just like for product people, asking them to do a lot of things. And it's okay to look for something else.
Thank you. Yep, please.
Thank you for sharing. I have two questions. And the first one, many people say that the BA roles can serve as a stepping stone to become a product manager. Do you agree with that? Does it mean that being a product manager has a better future in the job market compared to the BA role? And question two, as a product manager before, I don't like fighting with the developer all the time, so I quit the job. And I just learning the BA of the master of the BA now. So you have the advice to me from to become the BA role in the future and using my past experience as a product manager. Thank you.
Yeah, that is an interesting question in the room. That the people are asking the interesting question that if people are moving from BA into product role, does that mean product people have a better future than BA? Yeah, that's an interesting one. Jack, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is yes, it's stepping stone. We just saw that most product managers came from a BA background. So I think that's really clear. I mean, I don't think it's about roles having a better future. I think they're just different skills and different impacts. And it's up to you to decide where what most aligns with what you want and where you are in your career trajectory. And some people do want some of that bigger thinking that product does. Some people don't want that, and that's okay. And I think, in fact, we seem to be building more and more complex systems. So I feel like the need to understand a really complex technical system isn't going away anytime soon.
So one thing that we'll probably talk a bit more in the product community in the coming months about is some of the trends in where we see the product role going. And what we see is that product role becoming more and more commercially oriented. A lot of product in New Zealand, for historical reasons, often to do with digital transformations, has become a very delivery oriented role, and that commercial thinking is being done elsewhere in the organization. And as a consequence, when the pressure comes on that organization, they need to cut cost. People who are just backlog administrators are looked on going like, you're really adding value. People who are really owning the commercial conversation, so I can say, look, my role, my team generates this amount of revenue for the business. So if you get rid of me, that's the revenue you're saying goodbye to. It's a very powerful argument for staying in the organization. So we are seeing a trend in product to it being more commercial. I've spent some time in Silicon Valley just recently. The product managers, they're all highly commercial, highly entrepreneurial, quite different to how we see product here in New Zealand. So, and that's really interesting challenge for us as an industry, because if 27% of our people have come in from a BA perspective and 47% have come in from a non-commercial background, that's quite a gap. We've got a long way to lift those people up. And how do we do that as an organization? But to Zach's point, technical complexity ain't going away. So we still need those roles. So this is what we're looking at is in the industry about how that career path actually works, how it's working in New Zealand. I think ultimately the product role is going to become more and more commercial and less and less able to spend any time diving into the details. So that will still continue the need for the personal people to actually spend their time in the detail. And as we've said a couple of times now, what gets you out of bed? If getting yourself out of bed is dealing with the commercial stuff but never actually having time to dive deep, do that. If you really enjoy the deep diving part, do that.
I will add to that, like in the more IT tech space, we're seeing more of what you've described from BA and product. They are shifting left, and what we are seeing in a trend from engineers, especially in delivery teams, that they are also shifting left and trying to, I think, to prevent the kind of stopgaps. If someone's on leave, there's this concept of, feature leading, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're taking away from the BA, but they're getting closer to the problem, being able to keep across the details so that the BA is more, an evangelist for product around value and delivery and focus there so that they can, catch those non-functionals, so to speak, earlier on. And that is also a commercial mindset around making sure that, there is a cost to the business. There's a cost for delivery process. It's not just how much money are we going to get from this product when we launch it, right? So understanding that as an aspect is really important. And I think that BAs should be pushing into that space and understanding that, at least articulating that well to product, to stakeholders, to their delivery teams, because, developers aren't actually code monkeys. They do have brains. So I think that's really important is that, it's great opportunities for all I see, especially in the tech space. So I'm really excited to see how that evolves in the future.
Thank you. As we approaching the end, last question in the room. Yeah, please.
Hi everyone. I'm curious about, so back in your career pathways, how did you first move to the first product related role or first management related role? What kind of qualities or skills you think help you most, contribute most for you at that time to get that job? And in the current New Zealand market, what's the most essential thing you think a candidate should have in the product related role, like product owner, etc., especially for young people who have like around 30 years work experience in BA or DA kind of roles? Thank you.
So there is a question in the room. They ask about how did they get their first role as a as a product people, and especially any advice as the job market in New Zealand is so terrible.
I think that question eliminates me because I have not worked as a product role.
Yeah.
So my jump into product happened as acted, sort of, it was by accident, but it was a little bit of right place at right time about it. But what it really was, so I was, my title was project manager in this fintech organization, and we were doing a transformation and Scrum transformation, and so they defined the product owner role and said, my boss came to me and said, right, okay, we're going to split your role into product owner and project manager. Which one would you like? But by the way, I think you would be good at the product owner one because you display those qualities of ownership and vision and drive. And so to me, while I say it was by accident, I was kind of acting like it. And later on, I actually found out, even in a role I'd had previous to that, I probably was actually being a product manager. I just didn't know that it was a thing. And so it's that concept of, do you display ownership? Do you display curiosity? Those are the two qualities that I'm always looking for people. It's, I think we talked about it earlier. Do you see a problem and go, why are we not fixing this? And what would it take to fix this? And commercially, does fixing this matter? It's having that ownership, that customer oriented kind of mindset. And so it's a bit of a, show not tell kind of thing, actually being able to do it. And that's why the internal transfer career path is so common, because it's hard to show that outside. The only way to do it from outside usually is to have some kind of side hustle. So some kind of side project or business that you've built on the side and you've shown those sort of entrepreneurial kind of things. The best way to do it, as I said, is an internal transfer. On the state of the market, I mean, hang tight. Things are actually getting better. I'm seeing more product roles coming into the market even in the last sort of month or two than I saw in the middle of the year. So I think things are improving. Funders are starting to gain a bit more confidence. So yeah, it is kind of coming right. So hang in there. And also importantly, and I say this to everyone who I've had this conversation with, it's not you. I know that there are people out here who've sent out tens or hundreds of CVs, applications, haven't heard anything, been ghosted. There's a couple of recruiters in the room, so be careful what I say. But it's not you. The market is historically bad. This is the worst I've seen it in 20 years. So don't lose heart and think it's you. It's not. It's the state of the market right now.
Yeah, so earlier this year, we hired for an assistant product owner. And traditionally, that role's gone to someone postgraduate program. So after 2 years, they've kind of moved from the graduate program into our officially a role as an assistant product owner. But this time, when we recruited this year, we had lots of people with lots of experience. And so, the person who ended up in that role has 5+ years experience working in an agile delivery. Now they were never a product person per se, but they had 5 years of experience working in or at least around software delivery. It's kind of hard. So if you're coming in as a grad or something like that, it's just really hard to compete with that and the level of talent that you're getting. And so I know it's hard to hear. It's really, I think it's a really sad message that those roles, it will take some time for the market to clear. But in the meantime, I think, as Anthony's saying, I think ownership is a really big deal. Like I want people to, and this doesn't apply just to BAs, I think this applies to all roles, but how are you helping me solve the customer problem that we're trying to deliver on? Don't just be functional about your area or what your job is, but really help me get the best outcome for the customer while delivering value for money for our organizations.
Yep. Thank you. I think that's all for our panel discussion today.